Welcome your host, Caddy Frink, as she leads discussions about substance use disorder and the journey to recovery. You're listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Well, hello. I feel like it has been a minute since I've been here. Hasn't it, Sarah?
It has.
So my name is Caddy Frink. I am your host at Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution here on AM 950, the progressive radio station. Thank you for joining us. I have been gone for a little while because of this, that, and the other thing. But Miss Sarah, who are you?
I'm Sarah Kemp.
Are you?
Yes.
Like the ice cream?
Yes.
Kemp? Oh, man. Love that. Well, welcome, everybody. I'm so delighted to be back. Had a little health issue in between and a little of this and a little of that, but we're back. So thank you. I want to say special thanks to our generous funders, including the Patrick and Amy Butler Foundation, Otto Bremer Trust, the Sauer Family Foundation, Hardenberg Foundation, alongside many other foundations, corporate and individual contributors for making this radio series and podcast series available for folks, because you know what? When we talk about recovery, people get more smarter, don't they, Sarah?
They do.
They get more smarter.
Or feel supported.
Yeah. And I think, having been gone for a couple of weeks, having to reflect on missing doing this, because this is the dream.
It is.
Yes. It makes me think about all the people that have supported me and support our family of people in recovery, and it's so important to remember that people that struggle with substance use disorder need their communities. And Sarah did something last night. Remind everybody who you are at Minnesota Recovery Connection.
I am the Director of Community Relations, and I help support our volunteers, our recovery core team of navigators and coordinators. And I help Darnell, who's been on the show before and with me a couple weeks ago, support our CPRSs, our Certified Peer Recovery Specialists.
Yeah, can't talk in acronyms because
I know.
nobody knows what the heck we're talking about. Got to make sure. And many of you know who I am, but for anybody who might be a new listener, I work at Minnesota Recovery Connection as a director of programs. Been around for, what do we call me?
The dinosaur.
The dinosaur. Been
Recovery
around.
Rex.
Yeah. Recovery Rex Caddy. I kind of reintroduce myself because hopefully there's new audiences out there listening and people wanting to kind of hear this conversation about recovery. And Sarah did a test last night.
I did.
What did you do last night? And what we're going to sort of embark on, folks, in this conversation today is kind of some of the health disparities, health fears, health shame that happen with people that struggle with substance use disorder. And then maybe are on the other side and in recovery, but maybe some of the things that happened while they were experiencing their substance use disorder, which makes medical care scary. So Sarah found out that she does a lot of...
Wait a second.
What?
We didn't do what's...
I'm so sorry, Sarah. What's right with you?
That's why I was looking at you funny.
She's looking at me like, Caddy, just shut up. Talk to me. I need to be asked a question.
What is right with me today? I think it's the warmer weather. It just makes a whole different mood for me. Makes me so much happier being able to get outside. I know you love gardening, so
it's a thing.
But going on walks after work now and things like that.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you, Caddy? What's right with you today?
Well, when you said plants and gardens and outside, oh my. So last summer, at the end of summer, there was a person in our neighborhood that had a free tree.
Oh, wow.
And it was a cherry blossom or a apple tree. And the woman who gave it to the guy who gave it to me, I know that we have to follow that track, named the tree Eloise.
Okay.
Sometimes you just got to do things that just don't make any sense to anybody. But so the tree Eloise we planted last fall. I did such a good job. I made research. I've never planted a tree before. Eloise has got all kinds of flower buds.
Oh, cute.
She's gonna pop in the next like couple of days because she's just ready. Her little blossoms are just like in
Well,
their
and I'm
little.
sure all the rain we just had helped.
Yeah, well, and it's the heat. So once that it starts to
Oh.
warm up, then everything goes.
Yeah.
So Eloise is like ready to pop.
Oh, that's
It's so
exciting.
exciting. So to your point, what's right with me is that spring is here. I got to tear down some old dead vines on something last night while the cats were in the backyard.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so with spring coming and the whole idea that recovery is rejuvenating
Mhm.
and we are always growing and changing and that it is, on this trajectory, I just feel my spirit lift up in my own recovery journey.
And everyone's mood just changes
Yeah.
with the warm weather after coming out of, it wasn't bad winter, but just still winter.
Yeah, it's still winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's mood just changes and everyone's happier from what I can see.
Yeah.
At least.
Yes.
So maybe not,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what I see.
Well, and then we have, threatening rainstorms, and then we had some severe tornadoes.
Yeah, and then nothing happened, at least in the Twin Cities. I
I
was
know,
kind
but
of disappointed.
I know. Well,
I'm
we
a
just-
weather nerd. So.
Yeah, she is a weather geek. So, and
Yeah.
so am I. So, and I think we've turned our director, Cynthia, into one
I
as
think
well.
we have too. And that's okay.
And it's important when we think about people who are living without homes that are outside, people that struggle with substance use disorder in so many different ways and spaces. I'm always going to dial it back to recovery
As
whenever
you
I
should.
can.
As the host, you should.
Yes. So again, I jumped ahead. So Sarah called me on my forgetting to ask our significant question.
It's been a while for her. So.
Yeah, so I got to get back on track. So we're going to talk about some of the health disparities, and then we're also going to talk about what Sarah said, and then it's springtime and it's summertime. And when we are in this sort of rejuvenation and celebratory time, what happens, Sarah?
Well, I think of booze,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
I think of like all the fun summery umbrella drinks and just being out on the patio. But that's what I think of because that's how my brain works.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. For a long time, we were celebrating all the time.
Every day.
So what we want to talk about a little bit is when we get into celebratory time of years, we're going to come into graduations, we're going to come into weddings, we're going to come into
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day is going to come up sooner than we think. We're going to, come up with just birthdays. We're going to come up with outside activities.
Or just because it's summer.
Yeah, exactly. Picnics and gatherings and class reunions. God help me. I don't think I have one this year. I hope so. I hope not. It'd be about a year 150.
Oh, jeez.
So we're just going to talk about how do we help ourselves, and then how do we support the people that are maybe in their early recovery or even in their long recovery, like myself. And sometimes we get kind of like, wow, maybe just one, or this won't be that bad, or
I can drink just one or do just one or whatever that looks like.
Just this time.
Yeah.
And
it's the one time.
It's the one time that can become a lifetime. Ooh, bam, that was good. Boom.
It's like she got some sleep last night.
Yes, I did. So we just want to kind of open up some thoughts about, we can have topics, we can have different people come in and tell stories, but I think when Sarah talked about doing her last night.
I did a sleep study last night.
And how'd that go?
It was weird.
Yeah, because you did it at home.
I did it at home. But you still have wires and things in your nose. And it was just, they tell you to sleep normally. I feel like I slept, but not normally.
Yeah.
But the test is supposed to help me figure out what's going on with my sleep. So hopefully I get answers.
Just so everybody knows, she's been told by certain individuals that she has a rather large snoring issue. Yeah,
I do. And then I vaguely remember when I was with my ex and we were together. He told me that there was a couple times that I would snore really loud and then stop breathing.
And that's the concerning part.
Yeah. And so, and then it goes into is it the drugs? Is it the sleep? Is it both? Is it like what came first? Is it, or
Yeah. Or is it just your body has a issue with it? And then, and this is why this sort of tips into the conversation we're going to have after break. And that is, sometimes we don't know what's going on with our bodies until we find our recovery. And then all of a sudden we have more of an awareness of what could be or has been. But now that we're clear thinking, we can go, okay, I'll step into that uncomfortable space.
Even if you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to thank you for listening, and we will be back with Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution, here with Caddy and
Sarah.
Hey from Minnesota Recovery Connection at AM 950.
We've all seen the man at the liquor store begging for your change.
No, Caddy forgot. Here we are dancing in our seats, right, Sarah?
It is. And sunshine. This song always makes me think of
I know.
sunshine.
It's just so fun to have this light, bright, easy music. It kind of keeps the soul just kind of going. Well, welcome back to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. My name is Caddy Frink. I'm the host. And Miss Sarah
Kemp like the ice cream.
is across the table from me. I just love that.
I don't think this will ever get old for her.
Never. We had a wonderful conversation at the office the other day. Our director said, Sarah, how did you get at Minnesota Recovery Connection? And we were having this reflection, myself included, about during COVID, Sarah was an intern for Minnesota Recovery Connection. And I'm like, oh, you're the girl in the windows.
The Zoom window.
Yes.
Yes.
So she was an intern for us during COVID, and I only saw her on a Zoom box with windows in back of her, and I'm like, oh, that's who you are.
And now in person every day.
Oh, how lucky we are. So we want to talk about what it's like when an individual struggles with substance use disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I just brought that one tone way down. I
Did. Wow.
Ooh. When a person struggles with substance use disorder, there's this... there's the happy-go-lucky time, or there's the I binge drink from the word get-go, which is kind of my story.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of my time with substance use disorder, with using alcohol predominantly, I dabbled in other stuff, but it was of no interest to me because booze was my friend.
Oh, yes.
And I know that personally, I had a lot of weight issues. I remember I was sort of recapping, thinking about this show, that when I got arrested for my first DWI, I was at 290 pounds.
Oh my God. I can't.
I know.
Wow.
I know. And it made me kind of reflect as I was thinking about, I didn't give a hoot about anything.
Right.
You know, I was consuming vast amounts of alcohol, as well as I was working a couple of jobs where food was very
around.
available, because I was working in an industry where money, I mean, this was back in the day. So, there were a lot of corporate visits. There were a lot of trips. There were a lot of things. There are the hotels, and there's meals, and there's this, and there's that, and there's booze. Yeah, there was a period in time where it was, it was back in the 90s when money was all over the place for certain industries. So it made me think about what happened with me. And I had, after that first DWI, I had to take a look in the mirror, but I didn't necessarily stop using alcohol, but I did at some point begin to lose some weight. And I believe that's what brought on the second DWI, because I had dropped about 30 to 40 pounds, but I was still drinking.
Because you felt better about yourself. And so then you wanted to.
Well, I just kept on drinking. I didn't stop. So I was eating less, drinking the same amount. My body didn't metabolize as well. So I'll never forget that second DWI. I was a lot skinnier in the picture, but I was still a big old mess. But there's this like disconnect when you're in your substance use disorder and how it, you think about it.
Yes.
And, so the conversation wants to lean into that. If somebody struggles with a substance use disorder, we sometimes are afraid of what happens while we're drunk or using. Like, I remember I fell in the back of my apartment building and just gashed my head open. And I had to go to the doctor because I had a huge gash in my head, and I had to come up with some story.
Sure.
See, how many stories have we come up with when something's happened, when we have been either using or abusing or in a blackout? Because that's what happened to me. I remember falling, but I remember what happened. And so, a lot of people who might be listening have had family and friends and community members who have had an incident. And we are very prolific with our stories,
Can be.
possibly.
Can be.
And so I just want people to understand that if somebody's struggling with substances and they have an incident happen, they might come up with a real good cover story. So one of the things I asked Sarah to kind of be vulnerable about is one of the after effects of, so let people know what your substance use was and maybe what the cause and effect and where you are now.
Sure. So my drug of use was methamphetamine. And to piggyback off what Caddy was talking about weight, I dropped so much weight when I was in my active addiction. I dropped down to probably close to 120, 100 pounds.
Ooh, see, it can have the opposite effect
Yeah.
depending upon the chemical. Yeah.
And I'm little, so I'm like 4'11" at like 120 pounds, 100 pounds.
That
You
ain't a good look.
No, and you know how Facebook reminds you, like shows you opening. Anyway, an old picture showed up like months ago, and my face just looked so thin, and eyes were sunken in, and it was just like, oh,
That gaunt look,
I'm like,
probably.
what the front door was
Wow.
I
thinking at the time?
Yeah.
We see ourselves in those pictures, and we're like, "Who is that?"
Right, and then my front my teeth are the thing that Caddy want me to talk about because meth destroys your teeth.
Do you
no
have any
matter-
idea what it is that it does?
I think the chemicals that are in, there's so many bad chemicals within
Right.
meth itself.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you what they are.
Yeah,
but,
no, I'm not asking you to be a chemist
No.
right now.
I did watch Breaking Bad, but not that much. But it's all the chemicals in there. And for me, I just didn't brush my teeth.
Okay.
Also,
Plain
I
and
tried
simple. Mm-hmm.
but I got in recovery in 2019. I think 2020 is when I went back to my dentist after 5+ years of not going to the dentist.
Okay.
And
So let me take a step back. So in that
Yes.
time when you were in active use,
Mhm.
could you feel that your teeth
No.
were doing
I
problems?
thought they were fine.
You thought they were fine.
Because
Okay.
I didn't feel anything. Like I
Okay.
didn't feel like they were.
You didn't feel.
Well, that too. But they look the same to me.
Okay.
But you
okay.
know
when you're not in your right mind,
you're not seeing things the right way anyway.
Okay.
But then my front tooth chipped and broke,
Oh,
and I was like,
well, that's not a good look.
no, but I didn't care.
Really?
I didn't care because it didn't bother me.
So at this point, you didn't have a job. You were
No.
living with your ex-person.
Yep.
And you were in and out of being without shelter,
Yep.
just in your active addiction. So how you carried yourself really didn't matter.
It didn't bother me.
Okay, I'm just
At all.
curious. I just want to sort of paint a picture for those who might like wonder why would somebody run around with a chipped tooth, but you're in your active addiction, so you don't even see yourself wholly.
No,
right?
and also the people around me didn't care either.
Yeah, they just wanted what you wanted, which was not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like if I
It
came
was a
in-
no judgment zone.
It was. It's not like if I would have showed up at, for example, Minnesota Recovery Connection and someone would be like, what's up with your chipped tooth?
Right.
Or, do you know you have a chipped tooth?
Yeah. Do you know you have a
I'm
chipped
like,
tooth?
no, I didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's about who you surround yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I got in recovery in 2019 and I moved back in with my parents and I knew I needed to get my teeth looked at
Mm-hmm.
because also the front tooth was really bothering me. Like just the look of it. Once I started to get in recovery, I was like, oh.
Yeah. You saw yourself probably with clear eyes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So then I went to the dentist, and dentists, I really appreciate mine.
Mm-hmm.
There's no judgment. There's nothing negative.
How terrified were you to go in?
I don't think I was.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't think at least I don't remember being afraid to go in.
Okay, good.
When I met with my dentist, he's like, okay, so what's been going on? And I just told him, and he was understanding of it.
Wow.
And he said, at least you're coming in now
Good.
to get it looked at, worked on,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And then when he told me that if I waited, a few more months, I might have not had teeth.
Ooh.
And I was
So
like,
you were in really bad
"Whoa,"
shape.
yeah. And
Okay.
I had no clue.
Wow.
So if I have had, for like a year, I had every tooth worked on, taken out. or my whole mouth is like either temporary crowns or going to be start getting my permanent crowns in. So that's, yeah. And
I had no idea it was that vast.
So yeah, like I have to stay on top of I have to go every 4 months for a cleaning, and then we're going to start putting in the permanent crowns, that's its whole process within itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, my teeth are a lot.
Okay. Wow. I kind of knew that this was a big story for Sarah, but I guess I really didn't realize the real tragedy that took
and
place.
I didn't realize either until he said something.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's why the beauty of going to medical professionals is that they can see things that we just have gotten used to, because you got used to it, right?
I did. And it's so weird because during COVID, when I went to the dentist, they also checked your blood pressure because I was getting like Novocaine and all that stuff. So they wanted to make sure that I was healthy.
Oh.
And that's when I found out that my high blood pressure either came back or still was. And I just didn't.
You didn't care back in the day.
Right. Because I have a history of it. So that's how I found out I still have high blood pressure. Wow. And then by way of that, I found out I had diabetes. So, I mean, it's all kind of.
So having that initial medical intervention actually woke up some other things that could, if you honestly hadn't had your teeth looked at,
I would have never.
If maybe you would have gotten that front tooth fixed and kind of let it roll.
Yeah.
You would have never known that you had all these other things. And I think thank you, Sarah. I didn't realize that one sort of begot the next, begot the next.
Yep.
And same with me. I mean, I've been in recovery for a long time, but whenever my doctor would say, you've got high blood pressure, and I'd say, oh, don't worry, I'll lose weight. I'll take care of it. And then finally she looked at me like right in the eyes and she said, this is the one thing we can do something about, Caddy. Would you please just start taking the medication, because you don't want to, continue your damage. And there's a reluctance from, I think, individuals that have been, we've shamed ourselves so badly that we don't want to go to the doctor, because then we might have to admit that there's a problem. I mean, I even lied to my psychologist back in the day.
And I think too, it depends on what your drug of use is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like one is better or worse than the other, but I think the stigma that goes along with others, opposed to other, like alcohol.
Well, we call it, if you're an IV drug user, you are not going to disclose that unless you are on your
or opioids. Meth, you get a weird, for some people. I think I've said this before, but when I was in treatment the first time, I wish I was just an alcoholic.
Right. Yeah.
Because of the stigma that goes along with meth too.
Yeah.
I feel like alcohol's very accepted. Cocaine, I don't know much.
Cocaine is kind of old school. And if you hear that, you think, oh, well, they can get through that. It's these newer chemicals that have all these other chemicals in them. And then we know, because, here we have social media, we've got news, we've got the fentanyl epidemic, which really is the opioid epidemic on steroids. No pun intended there. Sorry, that was an easy one.
I didn't even catch it.
So when individuals that have struggled with substance use disorder and they've had an array, they've maybe had a menu of chemicals that they've used, they might go in and say, well, I drink a lot, and a doctor will go, okay, well, we can do something about that. But if you go in and you say, I'm a fentanyl user, or I'm a meth user, there could definitely be kind of like that side eye, and maybe you're in pain because you've got abdominal pain because you actually have something going on. Well, what we've heard time and time again, oh, you're drug seeking, you just want more medications, or you come in with a persistent pain and you are coming in and you actually have a pain, but people see you in the medical facility. And I'm not judging the medical facility, because they have to deal with a lot of different, how do they see a human? And so for those people who have people that might be in pain, don't always assume or don't think that maybe they're just blowing something out of proportion. There could be something that really is going on, that even their chemical of use can't even take the pain away anymore. And so if somebody's in pain, be their advocate, work alongside them. If somebody falls down and breaks an ankle and they're terrified to go to the doctor because they have to admit that they fell down the stairs because they were on some sort of substance, take them to the doctor and say, hey, yes, this person was altered when they fell, but I can see that it's broken or it's sprained. we need to, because once somebody has some help from a medical facility, maybe they might be inclined to call Minnesota Recovery Connection, or maybe call a treatment center,
Mhm.
or maybe just call for help.
Or just be more comfortable with going to the doctor
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah, because I hear stories a lot about, I mean, we just had a peer recovery specialist training last week, and there was several people who said they just didn't want to go to the doctor.
Mm.
And as a trainer, as a advocate for my recovery community, I'm like, go and get yourself taken, get a look at, and go in. You don't have to like drop everything down on the table that
No.
you've done, but what hurts and why does it hurt, do you
Mhm.
think? Don't go to the Google doctor, because the Google doctor
It's bad.
well, the Google doctor's going to give you a lot of stuff.
And then you might get in your head.
Right. I mean, I had this little scratchy thing on my head a couple weeks ago, and I was thinking, oh Lord, I have a brain tumor. And I know I did.
Wow.
You go right there because we're so used to catastrophic things going
Yeah.
wrong.
Hmm.
And so instead I went to my acupuncturist, Andre, and he gave me some, he poked me with some noodles,
Oh my.
needles, and did some of his magic kind of,
Mm-hmm.
touch and moving energy around, and it went away. And I was able to, in one appointment, have somebody say, you're okay.
Yeah.
And we need to let folks know who are either actively in use or recently off of their substances that if they've got something going on, it's okay to get it looked at, but really maybe walk alongside them. And so you can hold their hand and say, hey, this person is really trying to get better.
Hmm.
So when you went to the dentist, like back in the day, did you go all by your little lonesome, or did you have anybody kind of hold your hand in the process?
No, well, my dad came with me. But
That's probably because you were getting,
yeah,
kind of getting some.
I was getting transportation assistance.
Well, transportation is.
I mean, because my parents made sure I got everywhere that I needed to be before I got my license back.
But I'm going to pull on that for a second. There's another huge issue, and that is somebody who might need help is out in rural America. Let's call it rural Minnesota.
Yeah.
Rural Minnesota, and doesn't have the ability to. But a family member or a friend or somebody is recognizing that this person really is having a problem. Be that individual to say, hey, you know what? I'm hearing that you really are struggling, and it's not just the drugs or the booze.
It's something more.
So your parents were obviously they were your advocate, but they made sure that you made it to the appointment.
They
right?
did. They made sure I got everywhere I needed to be. So my dad was with me, and I remember when I went back, and they were like, "There's too much going on in your mouth that you need to come back so we can make a treatment plan," because there was just too much to do in one cleaning.
Right.
So then I had to come back like the next week or something like that.
Right.
And I had my dad come with me just because. Just to have someone else like hear what was happening.
Exactly. That's advocacy. I mean, that's being somebody to walk alongside, because it's a lot to take in, right?
Yeah. And also just figuring out like how much it's gonna be and all, and all that stuff. But I will say that if you can have somebody go with you, regardless if it's a family member, friend, whatever that looks like for you, have someone go with you just to be that if you want a second set of ears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For certain appointments. I know not everything, but just like having somebody there to support you.
Yeah. And I'll speak to a situation that took place several years ago. I've had gallstones I had them for years and years, and a gallstone would pass, and I'm just talking about pain that I can bear. I don't know what childbirth feels like, but it's got to be at least similar. And I eventually had to have my gallbladder taken out because it just got to be too much. And I had this anyway. But I finally went in, and actually a doctor said, well, we'll get to you in a couple weeks. I said, oh no, you won't. You'll get me into surgery like ASAP, because I had to advocate for myself because the pain was too intense. But I said to the doctor, I said, I don't want to have any narcotics for the pain that took place. And he's like, okay. I said, I struggle with substance use disorder. I'm an alcoholic. I would use that term at that time. And he's like, okay. I wish I would have had something to cut the pain. And so that's the other side of this that I want to talk about. And that is, the pain was so intense. And what I want to just say out loud, and I am not promoting anybody to use narcotics post a surgery. if you don't think you can. But if you have somebody who can advocate for you and say, you know what, maybe what we can do is for 2 days, you can have some sort of pain relief, and then you can go to over the counter,
Something or other,
Tylenol
yeah.
or whatever it would be, the pain relief there. Because let me tell you, it hurt.
Tylenol didn't do it for you?
Oh, it didn't cut the pain. And it was intense. And I knew in the moment when I was getting up out of bed for that first time, I need something more, but it was like too late at that point.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't have the means to figure out how to get it. And I
Yeah.
just endured. So those of you who are helping somebody who's reluctant to take a medication because of their substance use, I'm not saying that they should, but let's have a good conversation with the doctor.
Mhm.
And don't let the doctor just prescribe something.
Yes. 'cause
Have a
it's easy
conversation.
for them to just willy-nilly.
Yeah. And that's her job, is to reduce pain.
Yep.
And that's really one of the things that we have to remember, and that is hospitals are literally judged on how much pain their patients are in. And they can get a bad reading if their patients are in pain. I learned this. Yes. So if
Really?
you say you're in pain and you review that, you know how we all get those little, is it a 1
yeah,
or a
yeah.
5-star, how was your, and what was your pain like? Did they reduce your pain? If you have a negative, it can negatively impact. And so what you want to do is have a conversation with the doctor and say, I want to reduce the pain, but I also need to be cognizant of my lived experience in utilizing substances. I mean, it's sort of a vicious circle that takes place.
I did not know that about hospitals.
I know. I learned that. And I was like,
Or doctors are.
And they don't want people to be in pain.
No.
I mean, that's their whole job, is to take the pain away or the suffering away.
Mhm.
And so when we are individuals that have struggled with substances, all the people that love the people that have, either for me, years and years ago, when I was in recovery, in the early days. Yes, if you're hearing a little
Sorry.
tingly noise,
That's
that would be
Alicia, sorry.
Sarah's phone ringing in the background. Sometimes we forget technology. No
Yes.
worries. So my whole point is that if you know somebody who has struggled with substance use disorder and is got to go to the dentist, has to go to the doctor, has to go to get something fixed, something got broken, somebody had an accident, somebody
Mhm.
fell, somebody was high, somebody was drunk, but they're wounded, don't let them think that they can just endure the pain because
Right.
I don't want to deal with what I might be judged with.
And or if you do, that might lead to other things.
Yeah. I mean,
Hypothetically.
I just think about you, Sarah, with the story that you said. If you hadn't gone and gotten your teeth taken care of, you could still be running around with high blood pressure. In time, it probably would have gotten dealt with, but you had this earlier intervention, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Rather than going to the doctor, which we all put off. Let's
Oh,
just
I
be.
still do when I'm 5 years. You
Jeez.
know what I mean?
I go reluctantly, even though I love my doctor, Nicole. She's fabulous. And I love the staff. I'm still like, nah, and doctors can tell us bad things,
Well, and
but they can also tell us good things.
they can, and I think also too, making it a priority
Mm-hmm,
is important.
mm-hmm.
Because if you take care of your body, your health, you'll live longer.
Mm-hmm.
You can enjoy life longer.
Yeah.
Or if you're in recovery, you can enjoy your recovery longer.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, I just go back to myself. When I was in active use, I didn't want to go to the doctor because I didn't want to be told I have a problem, even though I knew I had a problem.
Yeah, but hearing it from somebody that
it can give you that judgment look, like,
Yeah.
do you know that you're an alcoholic? And
yes, I do.
your names, I know.
Tell
And
me
after
something I don't know.
After I leave here, I'm going to go to the bar because you just made me more depressed. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
all these
Mhm.
crazy messages we have in our head.
Yep.
And so how are we going to help somebody who is struggling or has an ailment or truly has something going on? I was listening to a show the other night, and there's a woman who struggled with some substances, but she had persistent, terrible back pain, and she had to have surgery after surgery, but she had somebody who was there to help administer the medication so that she could repair herself.
Yep.
Because the pain wasn't going to go away. It had to be dealt with. And so it's all about what we do at Minnesota Recovery Connection is we educate, communicate, advocate for people. And that advocacy comes from any walk of life around somebody. If you care for the person, even though you don't like what they did, don't like who maybe they are in their substance use, still being around them and letting them know that I don't know that I understand who you are, but I want the best for you. That's kind of the message.
And just showing up and caring
Caring-
can make a difference and or help them see that they are loved, they're cared for, that you are there for them, and make them want to change.
Yeah, and give them an opportunity to grow and seek out some support. And it doesn't have to be treatment. It doesn't have to be a lot of things. I'm going to tell a quick story when we come back from break about a young man that came walking into the office the other day, because it was marvelous. So to quick break. Thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution, here with Sarah and Caddy at AM 950.
This guitar needs 6 strings, 'cause without it there's no song. And it
I love this music. I am so happy that Aaron found it. Oh, Aaron, I hope you are living your life in Puerto Rico. Just love that music. So Aaron Fitzgerald, who started this program with me, I hope you're doing well, my friend. Sarah Kemp, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, good. So
She's very excited to be back.
So excited to be back to do my dream. So where I think I want to take this next conversation, we talked about we are getting into the celebratory time of
You
year.
wanted to tell a story.
Oh, I want to tell a story. Thank you, see. It's so good to have somebody in the second fiddle chair. A day or two ago, office was closing when we thought we were going to have storms in the Twin Cities area, but we did in Greater Minnesota. I hope you all are okay. A father and son came walking in, and the son was looking a little, I'll say, disheveled.
Okay.
And the father came in and he said, "My son's had a relapse and we need help." I was like, okay.
Straight into the point.
Well, we did not miss a beat on that one.
No.
And the father started talking, and I looked at him very kindly and I said, "And sir, how about if I talk to your son?" And he said, "Okay." I kind of right-sized him a little bit because I needed to hear what was going on with the young man that was in front of me. And I said, "So tell me what's going on." And he says, I said, "Have you had any substances, or can you tell me what it is?" He says, "I drink." I said, "Okay." I said, "Former alcoholic myself." Kind of wanted to speak to the language that people understand.
Yep.
And I said, "Can you tell me when the last time you consumed?" And he said, 2 days ago. I said, "Congratulations, 2 days. That's amazing." And he didn't feel good. I could tell, you know, we can see that look on somebody's body and mind. He was perspiring a little bit and he was feeling a little less than.
Yeah.
And I said, "Tell me what you're looking for." And his father started to pipe in from the side. And I said, "You know what, sir?" I said, "I really appreciate it, but I'd really like to hear from this young man what he's looking for." And he said, "I just want somebody to talk to." And I thought, dude, you walked into the right door.
I was going to say, that's what we do.
Yeah. And it was interesting. And then all of a sudden the father looked at me and he goes, "So my wife has been here before." And he said, "Yep, I do have to be quiet." And I said, "Yes." I said, "Because I appreciate you bringing your son in, but this is about him today." And I said, "I need him to have his voice." And he's like, he just sat down on the sofa and he just kind of like zipped his lips shut. And I was like, "I appreciate you honoring that." And I said to the gentleman, I said, "You know, please keep in mind that you're here." And he goes, "I'm an enabler." And I said, "And I'm really glad that you acknowledge that." And I said, "And I want to tell you one thing, and I want you to hear me, young man," to the father.
Yeah.
I said, "Don't should your son. Don't tell your son what he should do. I really want you to change that word to could." And he kind of looked at me with some big eyes and he goes, "Yeah, I tell him what he should do all the time." And I said, "Do you think that helps?" And he said, "No." And I looked at his son and I said, how many times does that help you?" And he said, "Never." And I said, "Father, son, let's acknowledge this right off the bat." And then I used sort of a visual
Your teachery ways.
My teachery ways. I said, "Read your son might say to you," and I put up 3 fingers like a Scouts thing. And I said, "He might tell you to read between the lines on stuff." And he goes, "Yep, he does." I said, "So let's change how we talk to people." And so
Because the reception can be better.
And so I just talked to the young man for just a little bit. And I said, "You know what, we are closing our office because we're concerned about some weather." And I said, "Here's what we're going to do, blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
And so one of our individuals, I believe Adam, called him yesterday. And I have no idea what happened. And I'm just going to let that sort of move forward.
Yeah.
But I was so delighted that they came in looking for support because, you know, Minnesota Recovery Connection, we're about education, advocacy, and
peer-to-peer support.
Peer-to-peer support. It's what we do. So thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
It was such a perfect example of when somebody cares about someone So there's the situation where the father was advocating for his son, and the son came in and said, I need help and I just want somebody to talk to. He didn't want somebody to fix him.
Yep.
He said specifically, I just want somebody to talk to. And I thought, there we are.
It's what we do every day.
It's what we do every single day. And remember, folks that are listening, sometimes we don't need to tell people what to do. We need to hear where the pain is and what the situation is that's going on.
And just listen sometimes.
Just shut your mouth and listen. No, one mouth and two ears. I think whoever built these bodies of ours had the right idea. So in the last few minutes, what we want to remind people, and that this is a celebratory time of summer is. So we got all kinds of things that are going on.
Yes.
And what do you think the best help for someone who has to, let's say it's their sister, their brother, their mom, their dad, their aunt, their uncle that's getting married. What would Sarah's advice be if somebody feels the pressure that they have to go to an event?
I would say come up with a plan. So if you have to, I did air quotes just so people know. If you have to go somewhere, make a recovery or a recovery plan, reuse plan. I forget what the exact wording is.
Just make a plan for the day.
So, have people that you can call, have a list of like 2 or 3 people, if not more, that you can call if you're struggling. If you have to go somewhere, set a time to leave. So you're not there.
Come early, leave early.
Yeah, so you're not there for the whole thing if you don't want to be.
I think it's also okay that, let's say somebody's in their early recovery and
no is a full answer.
Yes. And that's to that point. Let's say somebody's in their early recovery and they are feeling very uncomfortable. The family, the friends, if the person says, I'm really sorry, I cannot come. Let's not judge them. They're trying to do the best that they can to take care of themselves because they don't want to put themselves at risk. And so what you can say is, I hear you. You want to come like an hour early and maybe grab a plate, say hi to the party participants before everything gets rolling. And then that way they feel like they're part of it, or have them be part of the party preparation. And then the minute the first guests come, you say, hey, nice to see y'all. I'm going to go off. Or I think the thing is that also you could bring a buddy. Bring a buddy, bring a safe buddy. Because if you bring somebody that is going to sort of see when your brain starts to go, oh, that just looks like a whole lot of fun that's going on there. Oh, they're going up to the bedroom. Maybe I can go up to the bedroom. And I'm not talking about doing anything that is shenanigans of bodies. I'm talking about chemicals. But when people leave and go off to other areas in a home, many times there's activities that are going on. And so I'm just saying, I'm just calling it out like I think I know it.
That does happen.
Yeah. And it does. And even people will go off and maybe do shots in another room or something where the kids aren't. So
I think it's also important.
Hang out at the kids' table too.
I think it's also important to remember too that if you are in your early recovery and if you're anything like I was, isolated during my active use, and then being around people again was weird. Like I had to learn how to be around people,
how to socialize again.
And not think about like what
everybody's doing and am I going to be part of it? It's
a different mindset. At least for me, it was in my early recovery of socializing again.
Well, and you also stopped utilizing substances during COVID. So isolation was really part of your recovery altogether. And now people, are more out and about, but people found their recovery, then maybe went back to use during COVID. And then so they're fearful of maybe being social.
And I think just COVID just kind of did a hit on people's sociability in general, or all wanting around to be around.
And
people.
So now you might want to like throw it all to the wind and say, oh, I get to be out and be with friends. Be careful. And the people who love people that struggle with substances, be mindful and be sensitive to the fact that if individuals say, I'm sorry, I can't come, it's not because they don't love you. It's not that they don't care. ask maybe, so tell me what's going on. Tell me so I understand. Ask the question to say, just so I understand, is it that you don't want to be here? It's like, no, I just can't be around the activities.
Yeah, and you
that are
don't got to
going.
go into the whole, into the weeds on but just give a brief what you're comfortable sharing with the person.
Yep.
So they have an understanding why, and maybe make different plans with that person.
Yeah. And just say it. I just really want to honor you're having a great day.
Yeah.
So we are just so grateful that you all are listening to this program.
Yes, we are.
You're making Caddy's dreams come true. I am grateful for Sarah Kemp being here with me today.
You're welcome.
Take care of all the people that you love and know that are both in recovery, discovering their recovery. It's an adventure. It ain't easy, folks.
No, and enjoy the weather.
Enjoy the weather. Thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. Have a marvelous day.
Bye.
Bye.